Good evening. My name is Rod Hall. I'm the city attorney. Was appointed in August of last summer. Prior to that, I spent 8 years as the city prosecutor. I've been in Moscow since 2005. I actually went to law school here and I did my undergrad here. Plus, I was also born here. So altogether, I've spent more time in Moscow than I have anywhere else. Prior to coming to Moscow, I worked over in Portland, and I worked at a public interest law firm where we represented people of low income, people who weren't getting represented, and did a lot of family law. Prior to that, I lived in Pocatello, and I worked for the county prosecutor's office, where I did almost every job in the prosecutor's office, including felony drug prosecutions, and then I was their civil attorney for the county. Prior to that, I worked for a few years in Boise for a nonprofit for United Vision for Idaho. I actually had the opportunity to work with the distinguished Judy Brown, who's in the audience, and learned a great deal watching the legislature. One thing that hanging around the legislature is kind of like people in Tennessee or around the sausage. If you like laws and really just respect the law, you don't really want to see how it's made. And prior to that, I started my law practice or practicing law in Lewiston at a small firm, did a general practice, but I spent most of my time doing child support enforcement. So I've had quite a bunch of experience in law and different things. And I really enjoy living in Moscow and working for the citizens of Moscow. How I want to start tonight is I'd like to go back about 240 years, and I'm going to come back up to today, to bring it current. I'm going to try to do this in 2 minutes, so bear with me. Okay. The vision statement in the Declaration of Independence advocates that it is self-evident that all people have certain inalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The U.S. Constitution is the rule book and tells government what it can and cannot do. Amendments to the Constitution clarify the responsibilities and boundaries of governmental action. The first 10 amendments, what we know as the Bill of Rights, protect our individual liberties from the powerful forces of the federal, state, and local governments. These amendments guarantee the basic liberties of freedom of speech, religion, unreasonable search and seizure, and even a speedy public trial for criminal offenses. Other amendments have been added over time in attempts to reconcile our Constitution to be more closely aligned with our American ideals of equality and liberty. Examples include getting rid of slavery and allowing women to vote. In a democracy, the government has a responsibility to all of its citizens. To truly represent all fairly, government must also protect the rights of people in the minority. Protecting civil liberties and civil rights is essential to making sure minority voices and even unpopular voices are heard. Federal, state, and local governments pass laws of which the majority are to guide our behaviors in our society. These laws cannot contradict the Constitution. Our constitutions promise equal protection under the law with the goal of guaranteeing freedom from unequal treatment and arbitrary discrimination by the government. It says nothing about how people deal with each other. For example, the 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection of the law to all. It applies only to government's relationships to its citizens. Discrimination based on race in private employment, housing, or public accommodation was not specifically against the law until Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. After the passage of the Civil Rights Act, businesses that previously had been able to discriminate and not hire people of color were no longer able to make employment decisions based on that characteristic. Civil rights laws try to fulfill the ideals expressed in the vision statement of the Declaration of Independence. They prohibit discrimination against all individuals based on specific characteristics, usually aimed at ending arbitrary discrimination in employment, housing, and in public accommodations. These laws, the civil rights laws, provide a remedy for individual cases of discrimination. In the absence of civil rights protections, nothing would prohibit non-governmental discrimination based on race, color, religious creed, ancestry, age, sex, national origin, familial status, veteran status, and/or disability. Civil rights do not grant special rights. These laws are to prevent unfair discrimination, nothing more, nothing less. The aim is simply to ensure equality, as they do for all members of our society. What characteristics should or have been the basis for civil rights protections? Any characteristics that has been unfairly used against a group of people to discriminate against that particular group of people. Now, we all have a stake in the public's debate of today's concerns. Our ability to voice informed opinions about these matters are critical. A democracy, by definition, cannot work unless all members of our society are free to participate and then have the ability to be involved in our political process. We need well-informed people to address important social questions.